What if I told you that the world's most secure prison, the place designed to hold the worst of the worst, was outsmarted? That in 1962, 3 inmates vanished from Alcatraz in the dead of night, leaving behind no trace, no bodies, only questions. This isn't a movie plot. This is a true story. A story buried in silence. A story the government claimed ended in drowning. But what if it didn't? Join us as we uncover the daring plan, the mysterious escape, and the chilling possibility that they may have gotten away. This is the escape from Alcatraz, like you've never heard it before. From afar, Alcatraz looks like a peaceful island resting quietly in the middle of San Francisco Bay. There are no trees, no bustling sounds, just gray stone, the distant cries of seagulls, and a silence that feels heavier than the waves crashing against its shores. But this small, rocky island was once home to the most feared prison in the United States. Known simply as the Rock, Alcatraz was where the government sent men it wanted to forget. Surrounded by icy waters and violent currents, it was designed to be impossible to escape. For decades, the myth held strong. No one could ever leave. But in 1962, 3 prisoners proved that even the strongest walls can be broken. Alcatraz was transformed into a federal maximum security prison in 1934. Its purpose was simple: to contain the most dangerous, escape-prone criminals in America. Everything about it was built for control, from the steel bars and strict routines to the freezing waters that cut off from the mainland. This prison held some of the most notorious names in crime history. Among them were Al Capone, the infamous mob boss who ruled the streets of Chicago, Robert Stroud, better known as the Birdman of Alcatraz, and George Machine Gun Kelly, one of the most feared gangsters of his time. Alcatraz wasn't just a prison. It was a statement, a symbol that even the worst criminals would face justice. But behind the cold walls, a different story was quietly unfolding. In 1960, a man named Frank Lee Morris arrived at Alcatraz. He was intelligent, calculating, and known for one thing: escaping prisons. Orphaned as a child, Morris had grown up moving between foster homes and juvenile facilities. By the time he was an adult, he had already escaped from several prisons. He was quiet, observant, and highly intelligent, with an IQ reportedly higher than 130. It wasn't long before Morris began thinking about escape again. At Alcatraz, he met 2 brothers from Georgia, John and Clarence Anglin, who had been arrested for bank robbery and transferred due to repeated escape attempts. The 3 men were joined by another inmate named Allen West, and together they began to plot what would become one of the most daring escape attempts in history. The plan was bold, dangerous, and meticulously calculated. Using spoons and homemade tools, the group began chiseling away the vent openings in the back of their cells, slowly widening the gaps just enough to crawl through. They hid the damage with cardboard and paint to avoid detection during daily inspections. To make their escape believable, they crafted life-size dummy heads out of soap, toilet paper, and real hair collected from the prison barbershop. These decoys would lie in their beds while the real men disappeared into the night. For 6 months, they worked silently and strategically, making sure no one could hear them or see what they were doing. They even created a raft from over 50 stolen raincoats, carefully stitched together and sealed to survive the freezing waters of the bay. On the night of June 11, 1962, everything was set. The timing, the tools, the disguises, it was all perfectly aligned. But just as they began to crawl through the vents, disaster struck. Allen West, the 4th member of the plan, got stuck. His larger frame couldn't fit through the narrow opening, and after several failed attempts, he was forced to stay behind. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers moved forward without him. They climbed through the utility corridors, emerged onto the rooftop, and made their way down the outer walls of the prison. Once at the shoreline, they launched their makeshift raft into the black waters of the bay and vanished. The next morning, prison guards were stunned to find the 3 men missing. From outside their cells, everything looked normal. The dummies were still lying in bed. But a closer look revealed the truth. The heads were fake. The men were gone. Alarms screamed across the island. A full-scale manhunt began. Boats, helicopters, and search teams scoured the bay. The FBI launched an official investigation that lasted 17 years. But despite their best efforts, no trace of the men was ever found. The official report concluded that the trio likely drowned before reaching land. The waters were too cold, the currents too strong. Survival, they said, was impossible. decades later, this legendary escape was thrust back into the spotlight. Former U.S. President Donald Trump called for the reopening and expansion of Alcatraz as a functioning prison once again. During his statement, he boldly declared that no one had ever escaped from Alcatraz, dismissing the 1962 breakout as a failed attempt. But that official version of events continues to be challenged by many. Did the men really drown? Or did they outsmart the system and vanish forever? Over the years, rumors have surfaced, mysterious letters, grainy photographs, and even eyewitness accounts claiming to have seen the Anglin brothers alive in South America. Some investigators believe the men survived and escaped with help from outside connections. Others are convinced the waters took their lives. But no bodies were ever found. No solid proof ever emerged. And so the mystery remains. In 1963, just 1 year after the escape, Alcatraz was shut down, not because of the escape itself, but due to the enormous cost of maintaining the island facility. Today, the island is a tourist attraction. Thousands of visitors walk through its cold corridors every year, staring into the very cells once occupied by Morris and the Anglin brothers. They listen to the stories, they feel the silence, and they wonder, could it really have happened? Maybe the answer lies buried beneath the waves. Or maybe, somewhere in the shadows of a distant country, 3 old men still remember the night they pulled off the greatest prison break in American history and got away with it. Alcatraz was built to be unbreakable. But on one foggy night, 3 men may have proved otherwise. Official records insist they drowned, but decades later, their fate is still debated. Did they beat the odds and vanish into freedom? Or did the bay swallow their secret forever? The rock is silent now, but the legend lives on, whispered by the waves, told in the shadows, and carried by those who still believe in the impossible. If you think they survived, tell us why in the comments below. And if you love true mysteries like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because we're just getting started.